Is it really Gucci? What did you
It's
pay for
Gucci.
that, Trevor?
It was a
So good.
lot. Yeah, it was a lot.
I'll bet.
Usually I'm not one to spend a lot of money on things, except unless like if it's furniture, wallpaper, some clothing. There's certain things
Yeah,
that I'll splurge on.
yeah,
But yeah, for the most part, it's funny because I'm a very, very frugal person, but there'll be certain things that I can't unsee, and it's
yeah.
like, oh my God, I need that wallpaper.
It's gorgeous, and it makes
Thank
for a
you.
great backdrop. Is that living
Yeah,
room or is that a
yeah.
bedroom?
This is living room.
Nice.
Yeah,
Wow, I love it. Well, Trevor, hello. Nice to meet you.
yeah. So nice to meet you too. Thank you
My
so much
name,
for having me on.
yeah, well, you are, the radio station is in Seattle, and I've been a fan of yours since the first Youth Lagoon record came out. How old were you when that record came out? 22?
I think I was 21 or 22.
Wow.
Yeah,
Huh.
so it was a long time ago. It's interesting too because when that stuff happens, you think that you have life figured out at that age, and you very quickly realize that it's the opposite.
Do you look back on lyrics and feel like, oh my God, are you embarrassed from any of your lyrics from the past?
No, actually, I'm really not. I think they hold up. There's songs that I wouldn't write now. My approach to music, really my approach to life in general, is so dramatically different now. But I
Yeah.
can still stand by every song that I've written, and especially within the realm of working on the live set and going back to some of this older material. I'm always surprised at how much it holds up. I feel like it could come out tomorrow and it would still, it still works and it still rings true. Again, even though I'm not the same person now, I
Yeah.
think that there's truth there.
Trevor, I went and listened to your debut record under your own name.
Hmm.
And you know what, I fell in love with the way that you use electronics and samples to create a vibe. I've always felt that your music, you're creating, it's less important what's going on in the sample and more important with the bigger picture of what you're trying to create. Is that
Mm,
true? Is that how you look at piecing things together?
it totally is. I always view music as being way more than just music. I view it as world building and trying to make something that feels it feels like something that I would be drawn to because I think about my favorite records are records, people like Nick Cave and Kate Bush and Tom Waits and these people that
Ah,
they're not just making songs, they're not just making albums, they're making worlds. And that's always my goal is to make something that not only I would want to inhabit, but something that someone else can inhabit and yeah, have there be texture there, have there be something that goes way beyond just music, but something that you feel like you could actually reach out and touch.
yeah. I love that you said you want to create worlds and that those artists create worlds because they do. Kate Bush, Hounds of Love is one of my favorite albums of all time, top five.
Same, easy.
And that is an experience. Like from the
Mhm.
moment you get in, you go on a journey with her.
Yeah.
And it's scary at times and it's beautiful at times. And um, I feel like you are able to accomplish that
Well,
in your
thank you.
records.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that's always my goal. And I really what it comes down to is I just care so much about music. I obsess over it. It becomes something that possesses me to the point where I wouldn't be able to ever escape it even if I tried. I'm the kind of person where I'll walk down the street and I'll have lines that just haunt me. And I keep trying to work out what's the perfect word, or series of words. And you realize that's one of the reasons why I love songwriting is because I love words and the power of putting two words together or three words together, and how every single time that you it's this additional process, it creates more dimension and more. I know I keep using the word truth, but there's certain things that feel true even if you don't always know why.
Do you ever use words to create a sound? Like I'm also a big Cocteau Twins fan,
Mm-hmm.
and Elizabeth Fraser,
The
oftentimes, as you
best.
know, uses words just to create the sound she wants, not because
Yes.
she's got a narrative, but
Uh-huh.
because she's creating a sound. Do you ever do that in your work?
I do, yeah. Often lyrics start off phonetically, where I'll sit down at the piano. The songs don't always start at the piano, but it seems like more often than not they do, just so I can develop some kind of foundation, some kind of basis for structure,
Yeah.
chords, melodies, all that. But when I'm working on lyrics, it starts off as this way of I'm just making sounds with my mouth and something, it's based on consonants and how things, every single consonant or uh, just the world of phonetics. There's an emotion that goes into all of that. So then what I do is I basically have all this gibberish, but then I'll be attracted to the way that certain words in the gibberish feel, and
Okay.
from that point on it's this mush that I start molding into something that actually matters and actually means something,
Yeah.
while at the same time maintaining the power of phonetics. Because I love that you brought up Elizabeth Fraser, because that kind of thing, I know Tom York does the same thing,
Yes. Yep.
where you don't want to, I think if you drift too far from what captured you initially from those phonetics within a song, you end up losing a lot of the heart and soul of the music.
Yet you're able to also spin pop hooks into all of this. Like
Mm-hmm.
Prize Fighter, I love the production of it. And I love the fact that it kicks into this big fat chorus. Um, there's a moment that I have to wonder what kind of influence bands like Def Cab and or Built to Spill have on your pop sensibilities.
To be honest, I don't listen to either band. I did grow up listening to Death Cab. Built to Spill, I know it's sad to say because I'm an
Because you're
Idaho
from
boy.
Boise. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm an Idaho boy, but I just yeah, it's not, I don't have anything against it. I've gone to some of the shows and stuff, but
Yeah.
it's not a wormhole that
Okay.
I've fallen down.
Okay.
But I know
What?
people, there's a lot of people in my circle that are obsessed with them. I'm not familiar enough to speak on it.
Okay. Well, I would figure because you're an Idaho boy that you
Uh,
might be very up on sort of their catalog, as it were. But no.
it's probably the exact opposite, to be honest, because my personality type is always, if I'm around something, if it's in my vicinity in terms of arts and what's going on, I really don't want to pull too much from any of that, because
Ah,
I'm really into creating my own stuff. And so yeah, so I tend to be, I'm inspired by so many different things, but I would say within the realm of music, I know I mentioned a lot of songwriters, but I would say I'm actually way more inspired by films than by
really?
music, because with films, since it's a totally different medium, I can steal from it all day long. I can take all the emotions. I can take, I'll watch a movie, say, by someone like Andrei Tarkovsky. Stalker is one of my all-time favorite movies. And the way that he's playing with what he's not showing you, Stalker is it's one of the greatest sci-fi films of all time, in my opinion. But the power comes from what he's not showing you, not necessarily what he's showing you.
And
It's all
what your
based on,
imagination is.
exactly.
Yeah.
And so I'll watch movies like that and then feel this compulsion to write music, because I have, it's giving me all these feelings. But with music, even though I do pull from a lot of music, I'm in love with so many musicians and so many records, I have this fear of, if I'm listening too much to one person or too much to a certain type of thing, that I'm going to be too influenced by that.
Sure.
So with films, it's so much easier to get lost in that world without that fear. Like I said,
Yeah.
I can steal from that stuff all day long, and it's not the same thing, because it's a totally different medium.
Name 5 films that are inspiring to you, not only on a narrative level, but on a cinematic level. Like Amelie is like
Oh,
one of my favorite films
oh, so beautiful. Yeah, it's
because how
really great.
gorgeous it is,
It's so great.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've been really into the work of Jim Jarmusch. So Down by Law,
Yeah.
which Tom Waits is actually in.
Yep.
I love that movie. I love Jarmusch's Stranger Than Paradise. mostly
Okay.
because I'm also a huge John Lurie fan.
Yeah.
I think
Oh, you like the weird stuff. I love you for that. I love
yeah,
you for that, Trevor.
yeah, lounge. Or do you like lounge lizards?
You know what? I listened to a little bit of that's John's stuff, right? John
Yeah,
Lewis stuff. Yeah.
yeah,
I listened to a little bit of that back in when I was doing college radio, but I couldn't rattle off a song for you.
yeah,
But
yeah. John's great. Within the modern, like a modern context, I think Jordan Peele is always doing fantastic
oh
work.
yeah.
Things like Nope, obviously everyone talks about Get Out, but I think Nope, it was such a divisive film, but to me that resonated a lot because of the themes that I've been working in with songwriting and pulling from some of like the almost things that feel kind of Wild West, mostly because of what I'm surrounded by in
Yeah.
Idaho. When I saw Nope, it hit me at such a sweet spot because there was just so much there to be inspired by. Um,
And that also plays into what you're talking about. It's more about what you don't see in that
yeah,
film. There's a lot of
totally.
that. So
Totally. Yeah,
yeah,
that pops up a lot.
yeah.
Sophia Coppola, like Lost in Translation is one of my all-time favorite movies. That setting with the hotel in Tokyo. Anything that has that, there's this mystique, there's a romanticism to it, and you're drawn in because of the colors and the situation and the characters, but you're not always sure why. That stuff always hits me so hard.
Very cool. I should have asked you this in the beginning of the interview. What are your pronouns? Just so I don't
He,
sort of
him, he, him.
he him.
Thanks for
Okay.
asking. Yeah, I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
It's interesting, Trevor, because I'm not a young man, so adjusting to a new world of, having to pay attention to that.
For sure. No, I respect that. Thank you.
Yeah, I drop the ball sometimes and you know, pick it back up and move on.
That's all you could do.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what it's about.
Trevor, how would you describe the difference between the work you've released solo and the work you do with Youth Lagoon? What's the difference between that stuff? Because Youth Lagoon is you as well, right? Just you
Mhm.
with a different sort of flavor, or
Yeah, sorry about the lawn mowing. Is that too loud?
I don't hear it at all.
Okay, cool. All right, we're set.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say it's a tough question, but I would say that when I had killed off Youth Lagoon, it was because I ended the moniker in 2015, maybe early 2016,
Right.
and it was because it became this thing, it became this creature that I no longer identified with. Mostly because I think that I let others infiltrate too much what it was that I was trying to do or accomplish through it. I'm the kind of person where I'm always going to be on my own train, no matter if anyone else is on it. Just because music to me, it has to be a selfish endeavor because it's how I understand the world, it's how I understand myself. And so that being said, I'm never one to do something more than once, and for years I've been so in the headspace of I do something in one corner of my brain, so I instantly move to the next, and I'm
Okay.
bouncing all these different places. And that had happened. So when I had killed off the moniker, that had happened with making music under my own name. Is it felt like for the first time since before I had started Youth Lagoon, I had hardly any eyes on me, and there was so much freedom to that, freedom to explore, freedom to fail, freedom to succeed fully on my own terms. It was such a necessity artistically and in my own personal life to burn the Youth Lagoon house down and start from
Interesting.
scratch. And so I did Mulberry Violence, which came out in 2018, and then a record called Capricorn, which came out in 2020. And both of those pieces of music are something that I stand so fully behind and I believe in so much and I'm so proud of. And they also taught me so much on a level that almost felt like going to college because I was able
Really?
to explore a lot of production approaches that I never did before with Youth Lagoon. I was always relying completely on other people.
Okay.
So what I was able to do with those tools then is after I had stumbled my way into using the Youth Lagoon moniker again, and what I mean by that is it was never some agenda of mine. It was never a plan. Had you told me years ago that this would have happened, I wouldn't have believed you, because I would have seen that as a regression rather than as a progression. But
Okay.
what had happened in my own life is I had a series of health events go down. I had this really bad drug reaction happen that turned my whole digestive system upside down, and all these other systems in my body.
Yeah. What
Everything's so
happened, Trevor?
connected. I had a reaction to an over-the-counter medication that was so bad that it ended up basically turned my stomach into this geyser of acid that constant. It wasn't like a normal acid reflux scenario. It was where it was this constant coating of my larynx and
Oh
pharynx
my God.
and vocal cords. So I completely lost my voice, and it went on for months to where
Would you throw up, or were you just regurgitating
it
acid?
was constant,
Ah,
both. And so I saw so many specialists and had tests done. No one could tell me what was going on. And so I hit this point, is maybe 4 or 5 months into that I had nowhere to turn but inward. There was this learning how to meditate was the first
ah,
huge key.
okay.
And within the meditation, I had these breakthroughs where I realized that in my life, I kept leading up to that point. I had so much fear. Number one, fear controlled my entire existence, and number two, I had compartmentalized everything in my life, including everything artistically, to where I felt like there were all these previous versions of myself, and now here I am, versus there essentially being no timeline and everything is all together. So all that being said, when I had started writing music as a way to deal with what I was going through on a personal level, when I had accepted these previous versions of myself, if you will, that I had discarded, and I combined it with who I am now, where it is that I'm going,
Yeah.
my influences now, being such a dramatically different person, that's when all the exciting stuff started happening. It was the past plus the present equals the future mindset.
Was it something that after your health got better, you to me that's therapy work. That's
Mm-hmm.
work that you really have to. Did you work with a therapist? Did you get,
Mm-hmm.
psychiatric help there? Because I know I needed it for years and years and years.
Yeah, it makes a big difference. I definitely did. Yeah. So I saw two therapists. One was more traditional talk therapy, and then another was hypnotherapy, which
Really?
which hypnotherapy was unreal. I mean, that also taught me the power of the subconscious mind, and how there's always these mechanisms happening in us at all times that we don't have to consciously think of, but that informs the way we, obviously the way that the way we live, the way we speak, the way we create,
Yeah.
the way we treat others. It's all so connected.
That's really interesting. I'm glad that you did that because I've done a million different types of therapy. And, um, I just hit 5.5 years sober, but for 25 years, I was
Congratulations.
not. Yeah. Thank you very much. Took me a long time to get there, Trevor.
Well, that's
And
amazing.
I
That's
was
great.
basically almost homeless because it wasn't just alcohol. I was all over the map with it. And, um, yeah, glad to be alive.
Yeah, I'm
Glad
happy
to
you're
be
alive
working.
too.
Have you ever struggled with addiction issues at all?
I haven't. No, I definitely did my fair share of drinking in my 20s,
Yeah.
and I don't, I still drink a little bit, but my priorities in life have shifted so much with, I think the reason that I drank to begin with in my 20s, especially drank to the point where it was never a problem, it was never a faucet I couldn't turn off,
Okay.
but it was a mechanism for feeling a little more comfortable in my own body, dealing with anxiety, feeling more confident.
Yeah.
And and what I've found is how connected it is when you start finding that in actual healthy ways, and who you are as a person keeps leveling up, the other stuff starts falling off, and you
Yeah.
don't you don't need it.
Right.
It's the whole crutch thing.
Yeah. That's interesting that you've figured that out at 34. I wish
Yeah.
I had figured that stuff out way earlier than that.
Yeah, well,
Um,
I had a lot of examples of the opposite. My uncle, who was one of my closest friends, his name was Uncle Terry. He had died from an overdose when I
oh man.
was, um, God, it was probably, I think I was a junior in high school,
Wow.
and he was such an important figure in my life. He was someone where he was one of the biggest believers in my music. I would make him these cassettes that I would record at the house. He lived in Las Vegas, and he
Okay.
was on he was on the run from the police. He was
Man,
wanted.
Uncle
He was
Terry.
wanted. Yeah, he was wanted in Boston, so he ended up moving to Vegas. Yeah, he was a character, but
Vegas.
he just had so much life and passion. He was a painter. He just had all this stuff
Wow.
going on, but he could not shake the devil on his shoulder.
And
But
Vegas is not the place to try to do
Vegas
that.
is not the place.
Ooh.
Yeah. And so his thing was heroin and crack. It was mostly
Okay.
crack. He had told me that when he had tried crack as a teenager, he knew that his life was over because he loved it so much. So that became I always had his example as this thing in front of me, knowing I know where that road leads.
Yeah,
And
good.
it's not a road I want to be on. But at the same time, he also showed me at a very, very young age, because we were so close, that obviously what someone is struggling with, everyone has their own thing. And also some things people might struggle with more in plain sight, but
Yeah.
it has nothing to do with their character. It's this thing that he wanted to be clean more than anyone else around him.
Yeah.
And he just he couldn't
It's
swing
hard.
it. It got to him.
It's hard, man. It's really hard. And I'm sorry for your loss.
Thank
That
you. Thank
sucks.
you.
Um, Having said that, I'm really glad that he was able to be a living example of where you don't want to go,
For
you know?
sure. For sure.
Um, Talk a little bit about, is the idea that you must suffer for your art real? Like, do you feel like that's something that's a real thing for you or other artists?
I really don't think so. What I will say though is that life is hard, which everyone knows. And for myself and the way that I create, I tend to pull more from the difficult side of things, because it's a way that it's a way I can understand things.
Sure.
It's also I can see music sometimes as being a playground where even if I'm messing around with themes that might be heavy, I'm really attracted to exploring that underbelly, specifically the underbelly of America, writing
Yeah.
about these things that are the beautiful devastation or just straight up devastation. But one thing people lose sight of, I think, is they think that if you're playing around in those playgrounds that you yourself are unhappy, which is it's so not true. And there's so much joy in the process where I can be working on songs that it might feel like something out of a Jim Thompson novel, or like some of my favorite authors like William S. Burroughs or something. But I'm able to go into these waters and swim around and then come back up and not get lost in that, if that makes
Okay.
sense.
Yeah.
Whereas
Which is
I'm
rare, Trevor. It's
yeah,
rare
yeah, I know.
that
I
you're able to
know.
do that. Good for you, man. Good for you.
Yeah, thank you. So
I
I am definitely way more inspired by the underbelly.
Okay. Well, that brings me to asking you about the first single from this new record. The album is called Heaven is a Junkyard. I want to ask you about that, but I do want to talk about the first single. I just pulled up the lyrics from
Mhm.
Idaho Alien, and I'm wondering exactly, are you painting sort of a picture of Idaho? Are you illuminating the underbelly there?
For sure. Yeah, it's a huge part of my process lately has been, and this album is really just the beginning, because it's taught me to be more in the present moment, in the sense of the most exciting stuff is usually happening next door. It's happening on your street. It's happening in your family with your friends, and not being so consumed with how I used to be, which is, all the fun stuff is happening in Berlin or New York or London or
Right.
these places that I'm not. And the more that I've been able to be in that present moment and in conversations with people like my neighbors, who have so many stories to tell, or people like, aunts and uncles, or yeah, anyone and everything, total strangers at the coffee shop. It's such a there's an endless pool to draw from, and a track like Idaho Alien is a perfect example because it's a blend of fact and fiction, but even in the fiction there's so much truth, and I'm in every single character that I'm playing with, and it also makes it to where when it is fully my voice, it's coming directly from me. It means that much more because it took me years in my songwriting to learn that the more pieces that I have on the chessboard, essentially in terms of characters and names and situations and songs, the more multidimensional I can make a song, and really a story. Because I've always wanted to write. I've always wanted to write stories and fiction, and I realized
Wow.
I can do this through my music. I can combine the two.
Yeah. You know, we I was thinking about the different decades of music, and the 70s was such a decade where storytelling existed in pop music. Like
Mm-hmm.
when you listen to a lot of songs on the radio that were popular from that time, there's stories there and it
Yeah.
takes you on a weird little journey. And um I loved that about the 70s. And I could see that you were kind of going there with Idaho Alien.
Yeah.
Um it just some of the imagery. I was like, all right, here we are. I know where we are now.
Yeah, that's
Um,
great. I love that. I love that. And that kind of music is what I grew up on. Was that kind of, yeah, pop culture was what the whole zeitgeist was so different. It was so different back then, and there was something. There's so much. Yeah, there's just so much there on, to be able to combine storytelling and music. I think that's really the sweet spot.
you know what I also love about you is the fact that your music is so pretty at times and is so alluring and feminine in so many
Hmm.
ways.
Hmm.
And then I listened to the lyrics and I was
Yeah.
like, he is a contrarian all the way through. And I love every minute of it.
Yeah,
Like,
I love that you get that. That's great.
I mean, it's almost like you trick people, like you
Uh-huh.
lure them in and then you hit them with this dark side, which
Yeah.
bravo, bravo, man.
Thank you. That's my favorite. My favorite thing is when someone told me the other day that they were listening to, I think it was Idaho Alien, and they said they were with their husband in the kitchen and they were dancing, and then she was like, then I heard the words, and she's like, I like stopped in my tracks.
Oh my God, yeah. But I mean, great artists do that. And some of my favorite art is exactly that. I love pop music. I
Uh,
love, moody, sexy, beautiful stuff. I like dark and light when they come together.
Yeah, that's my favorite thing. That's my absolute favorite thing. If I'm working on something and it feels too light, I mean, it's a weird example, but it's kind of like cooking,
You gotta
where
fuck it
you
up.
have, you have a recipe. You gotta fuck it up.
I
It's like
love that.
this. It feels too sweet. So I like that thing where something might feel like a lullaby, but at the heart and core of it, it's so fucked.
Yeah, right. Ah, God, I have a feeling we would get along famously, Trevor.
Yeah, I think so too.
I think we like a lot of the same music, and I can't wait to meet you. You're going to be at Numos October 10th. This is a big tour.
Yeah. Yep.
Can you hang with a tour like this? That's work. That's like
I
insane work.
Yeah, I think I can. I think I can now. In the past, I just didn't have the tools. That was another thing because when I had started Youth Lagoon, I was so young,
Yeah.
and I didn't have stability or any kind of foundation in my life to know how to navigate things without getting pulled underneath the water. But now I do, and like I said, with meditation and all this stuff, I'm so I can have a lot going on in my life now and feel surprisingly calm.
Oh, that's great, man. Like your feet are on the ground with
Yeah,
it all.
totally on the ground.
I love that for you.
So I'm
And
excited.
yeah, I mean, I think this album's going to be a big deal. Can you talk a little bit about Prize Fighter, which is the song we're playing? I mean, massive hook. There had to have been a moment you were like, okay, this is too big. this is
Yeah.
this is too big of a hook. Like, do you struggle with that as an artist where you're like, all right, I'm either gonna give it to him, like it's wonderful to me.
Thank you. I do struggle with that. I think that sometimes because I'm not the kind of person where I don't like things feeling spoon fed to me. So if I hear music that I feel like I'm being spoon fed something, or here's a hook and here's this thing that you don't have to think about. I'm just giving it to you. I don't like that. But what I've realized is that the kinds of the kinds of movies I love and music I love, they have moments of that. Like the whole thing doesn't have to feel like a challenge. You have these moments where here's this thing, here's this opportunity, here's a sense of permission to feel this thing that's a very obvious thing.
Right.
And then I'm gonna take it away from you, and then I might give it back, and then I might take it away.
Yeah.
And Price Fighter was one of those examples because that song had started off actually as a voice memo probably 4 years ago. I had like a 40-45 second voice memo on my phone of that hook. I had the chords and that hook and a couple words. One of the words was knuckles, and the voice memo was called Knuckles. And it was 2 weeks. I did all the demo tracking at home in Idaho, but I recorded the album in Los Angeles with this producer Roddy McDonald.
Okay.
And 2 weeks before I left for recording, I had 10 songs, but the 10th song, which Price Fighter ended up taking the place of, it just didn't feel there. So in kind of a scramble, I had this coming to Jesus moment where I was like, damn it, I just don't know if this is going to be strong enough. So I was going through my phone and I saw the voice memo labeled Knuckles, and I listened to it. And even though it was like 40 seconds long, it all made sense to me with the frame of mind I was in. So I knocked it out. I knocked the demo out in 2 days, sent it to Rod, and yeah, it was the last thing finished on the album.
Wow. When
It
you
almost
listen to it, were you like, oh, there's the hook. Did you have any idea that was going to be a big single on the record?
No, because it almost didn't make it. Yeah,
Oh
it
my
almost
God,
didn't.
that's
It
so
almost didn't
funny.
never exist.
Wow.
It was really
Wow.
close to never existing.
Huh. What, okay, so this is, if you had to pick 5 new musical things that you've been that have piqued your interest,
Mhm.
you know, 5 new musical projects, albums, songs, videos, what would you choose? Oh, I lost your video.
Oh, am I back?
Yep, you're back. Like right now, I'm
5
kind of
new.
obsessed with Fred again.
Fred Against Sick. The Brian Eno album's great. I
Oh,
think
I
it's
haven't
really
heard the
underrated,
Brian Eno
actually.
album.
I think it's cool. I think it's really cool.
Oh, you mean the Brian Eno Fred Again
The
collab?
collab, the
Ah,
collab.
okay. Yeah.
It's interesting because it feels like a 50-50, truly 50-50 thing where I think a lot of Fred Again fans were expecting it to sound just
More
straight up,
Fred Again.
yeah, more Fred Again, and they're like, wow, this is really gonna break this Brian Eno guy,
Right.
because they're not familiar with him.
Right.
But I think, yeah, I thought that one was interesting for sure. I agree.
It's funny because I didn't like that collab as much, only because I felt like Eno didn't understand Fred Again 100%. Like,
That makes sense.
like when I think of Fred Again, I think he's doing similar things to what you're doing, in that he'll drop these vocal samples, speed them up, do whatever to create a feeling, almost a spooky feeling. And I feel like Eno does that just naturally, but maybe Eno didn't, something about it didn't click for me. Um,
Gotcha.
and I
Gotcha.
love both artists so much, but you're a hip hop fan too, right? You like
I
hip
do
hop?
like hip hop. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love Danny Brown.
Yeah.
Danny Brown's so punk. It's one of the things I love so much about him.
Right.
I actually got to do, there was a tour I did, I think in 2013, Lane Fest, which was in Australia. And it was a big traveling festival, and Danny Brown was on that tour. So I was lucky enough to be able to spend a lot of time in cafeterias with Danny, and that dude. I love that dude so much.
That's odd. Did you become friends?
Not friends. I feel like we'd be friends now.
Yeah.
Who I was then, I was a little more reserved. But yeah, I feel like we'd get along now.
Are you a Frank Ocean fan at all?
Love Frank.
Yeah.
Love Frank.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Dream. That's a dream collab. Is
Oh,
Frank.
I could see it, man. I could see it. You
Yeah,
also like
Blonde.
electronic stuff.
I do, yeah. But really quick back to Frank. Blonde is one of those albums that it's a perfect testament to where if that was the only thing that Frank had ever done, you know, if nothing before it ever existed and nothing after it ever existed, Blonde is the gift that always gives. That's one of those albums that anytime I want to be inspired to work on music, if I turn on Blonde, and even if I listen to 3 or 4 songs, I have to write music.
Wow.
I
Wow,
have
that's
to.
interesting.
Yeah. So huge Frank fan.
You know,
What'd you think of the Coachella fiasco?
I felt bad for him because I know what it's like to get into your head so much that you panic. I get that
For sure.
100%. That's happened to me like so many I have anxiety issues that are massive. So I could identify with him pulling out altogether.
Mhm.
Um that's a lot of fucking pressure, man.
It
And he
is.
wanted it to be this grandiose, beautiful, ice skating, crazy thing. And I think it got away from him and it became um if I were him, I think I would have just said, fuck it all. Let me step down into the audience with my band and let's just
Yeah.
do face to face. Like, let's get real. Like,
Yeah.
I felt like he was creating in his head this amazing freaking performance. And then when it didn't sort of come together, he panicked. And I don't blame
Yeah.
him.
Well, and
Um,
plus it's Frank Ocean, so I don't know what people were expecting in terms of. I mean, I would like to think if I was at, it might be different if I paid for a Coachella ticket and you know got excited about seeing Frank right in front of me. I think it probably would have hit a little bit harder. But at
yeah,
the same time, I would like to think that I would have the mentality that I would find the humor in it and just be like, what the fuck did people expect?
right.
It's fucking Frank Ocean.
Yeah,
He's just being Frank.
he's being frank for sure. I just hope it doesn't drive him further into the closet with doing shows. Like, is this going to set a precedent where he's never going to play again? Like do
Yeah,
some bedroom shows.
I mean, I think I'd be fine even if that was the case. As long as he's recording music,
Yeah.
I'm fine.
I think Blonde also gave musicians the permission to not have to create the perfect song. Some of those pieces feel like they're still demos. And
Mm,
at first, when I heard Blonde, I was like, this song isn't finished. And then I
yeah,
understood that's his freedom. Like that's
yeah,
his freedom to do what he wants to do. And
yeah,
and now that's given permission. It's making it okay to not have a label breathe down your back about having the perfect pop song or
totally,
so in a
totally.
lot of
Yeah,
ways I think Blonde.
like you can have a sketch and it can
Right,
exist as just a sketch and that's how it's intended.
right. And even though there's songs on there that I'm like, but if he did this, like in my head, I'm like, oh, that would be the ultimate. But that's not how he sees it. So it's his
Yeah.
art, you know.
Yep. Yep.
Um, Man, Trevor, it's been really, really great to talk to you.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate it. I feel the same way. We got it. Are you going to be at the Seattle show?
Yeah, I am. In fact, I think you're coming in a day early and you're going to do a session for us. I think.
Fantastic. I did
Yeah.
hear that. Yep, yep.
So I can't wait to meet you there. I'll be hosting the session and we'll get to meet in person.
Cool. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. I've really enjoyed this.
Yeah. Thank you, Trevor. And yeah, go tend to the guys mowing the lawn. Make sure they did a good job.
Okay. All right. Will do.
Yeah. Nice to
All
meet
right.
you.
All right.
Thank
You
you.
too. Thank you.
Bye bye.